weekly recap, it's all the rage. He laughs and he hollers, takes center stage. Win or lose, he's got a grin on his face, 'cause Dallas Cowboys football is his happy place.
This is the One Star Cowboys podcast, and this is another end-of-week wrap-up, bringing you all the latest from the Star out in Frisco, Texas. A lot of these episodes, obviously injury updates and things like that. We'll get into all of that, but I think to start this off, I think the biggest one without question is Zack Martin and his ankle surgery that he's about to have next week. We knew that Zack was dealing with some ankle issues and that it was limiting him, and that's why he missed the last couple of games. But after meeting with the training staff and going over some things that he had done in the past that helped his ankle get better, it just wasn't responding like he wanted. And so he will have surgery next week. And, of course, when that happens with someone like Zack Martin, who the way his contract's structured, technically he is under contract next year, but it's a contract that he won't play for what that dollar amount would be. So if he was to come back for the Cowboys next season, it would be under a new deal. And so because of that, it makes you wonder, have you seen Zack Martin play his last game with the Dallas Cowboys? Jerry Jones was on 105 Through the Fan Friday morning, and he downplayed that, saying that this shouldn't be viewed as an end-of-playing career at all type injury, and it should be viewed as just a remainder of the season injury, and only that. Zack didn't want to talk about his future at all in the locker room this week. He said that that's not something that he's thinking about right now. Didn't want to address any type of potential retirement questions and things like that, but that is certainly something that is a possibility. We knew that kind of going into training camp that had a potential to be Zack's last year, and obviously you'd like him to go out on his own terms and not on an injury, but that is kind of where we're at right now. Micah Parsons in the locker room was talking about how he would like to see, obviously, Zack come back for at least one more year and to go out in a way different way. And Mike has made it pretty clear that he doesn't think of Zack as being somebody who would play for another team. He thinks Zack would retire before he would ever play for another team. And I couldn't agree with that more. I just don't see, if Zack's going to play another year, it'll be for the Dallas Cowboys. I'd be stunned if it was for anyone else. So more will obviously come out after he has the surgery, and I'm sure he'll address his future in the next couple of months. But he was asked a couple of different ways about that in the locker room, and he wanted no part of talking about beyond just having the surgery done. And so that's the number one thing on the injury report. No Zack Martin for the rest of the season. It was another lengthy injury report for the Cowboys this week, as it's been for a while. And I'd say the top people on there of note would be CeeDee Lamb, Trayvon Diggs, DeMarvion Overshown, Brandon Cooks, and Tyler Guyton. DeMarcus Lawrence wasn't on there. He still hasn't been activated from the foot injury. It looks like it'll be at least another week for him, so don't expect him to be out there Monday night, which isn't a huge surprise. But last week, Jerry Jones made it sound like there was a real possibility that DeMarcus would play against the Bengals, and that never ended up being the case. So in regards to the other players, good news for CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. CeeDee Lamb was limited on Friday, but he's trending in the right direction. He expects to play on Monday. Brandon Cooks was limited earlier in the week, but he was a full go on Friday. He expects to play. Trayvon Diggs is a little bit more of a 50-50 thing. He's still limited with the knee injury. DeMarvion Overshown was limited Thursday and Friday with a hamstring injury. He's expected to play. Tyler Guyton is a big question mark. He's dealing with the ankle and knee injury, and he has not practiced at all this week. He's worked off to the side on resistance cords, so if he can't go, that'll likely be Chuma Edoga getting the start at left tackle. And then so you would have Chuma Edoga as your starting left tackle, Tyler Smith as your left guard, Cooper Beebe as your center, and then right guard would probably be Brock Hoffman, and then Terrence Steele at right tackle. And one other injury of note to give you an update on is Jake Ferguson. As you probably know, he's been dealing with a concussion that has kept him out the last two games. And to be honest with you, when it comes to concussions, I've never heard a player be as open about it as Jake was on Friday in the locker room, talking about just how scary it was, particularly the first couple of days after he suffered the concussion. He talked about how he woke up in the middle of the night and he couldn't find his water bottle, and that led to him where he started crying, and he couldn't realize, he just couldn't understand why was he crying. And he hadn't cried that hard in a long time. He said not since probably his dog died when he was in middle school. And he said that, he came into the facility, I don't know if it was the next day or the day after that, and was, asking the training staff and doctors, like, what's going on. And they basically told him that, yeah, that's sometimes what happens, because his brain at that point was not healthy, and it was trying to recover, and sometimes that impacts your emotions and other things. And so he said that that's when I was like, I really need to take this serious, and I really trust our guys here and trust what the doctors are telling me. And so that's why it never really came close to him playing these last 2 games. But he's been back out there. He says that he's all the way back. He feels very comfortable. He's taken hits in practice that make him think that he's all the way back. But it was really, really scary, and one of those things where you just really feel for a guy when he's explaining stuff like that, because I don't think most people understand how serious these concussions can be and how they differ from player to player. And it certainly sounds like Jake Ferguson had a very serious concussion, and that's always been an issue, at least since I've covered the NFL, and the head injuries, and how the NFL has changed rules and upgraded equipment to try and take those type of injuries out of the game. But it is, at the end of the day, football, and concussions are going to happen when you're tackling other players and playing a physical game like football. But it was eye-opening and, like I said, a scary thing to hear that those are the type of symptoms that Jake Ferguson had. But he plans on playing on Monday, so that will obviously be something we continue to monitor and talk about, for the rest of the season. But like I said, he sounds like he's ready to go, and that he feels that he's past it and he's healthy and ready to return to the field. Switching up topics, another big one that's really been the case for the last few weeks with the Cowboys is Mike McCarthy, him coaching in the final year of his contract. Dak Prescott, in an interview with Yahoo Sports earlier in the week, gave a big endorsement for Mike McCarthy and how he'd like to see Mike be the Cowboys head coach beyond this season. And so Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones have been asked about that on Friday on 105.3 The Fan. And, Jerry basically said that that's what you should want, a player to be saying and things like that, and particularly in Dak's case, because he can't help Mike by winning games on the field, because obviously Dak's out for the rest of the season. But he did say that, with Dak's contract and where Dak's at in the organization, obviously a key piece, that, his input matters and things like that. But I didn't get the sense from when Jerry was talking that just Dak and players saying they want Mike McCarthy back is going to be enough for that to happen. I think it's going to come down to Jerry, Stephen meeting at the end of the season and determining it there on their own. And Stephen was asked about it, and he said that the way he was asked on 105.3 The Fan was basically, will McCarthy's future just be about wins and losses, and will that be what he's judged on? And Stephen said that it won't, that there'll be more that they factor in with that. And he also said that he thinks that the whole team endorses Mike McCarthy, not just Dak Prescott. And so that will all be factored in. But I would still say that even after hearing Dak talk and Jerry talk and Stephen talk, that I don't think you can definitively say one way or the other what their decision will be with their head coach at the end of the season. I think they really do want to see how the rest of the season unfolds before they make that decision of moving on or potentially giving Mike McCarthy and this staff new contracts. I think most people would lean towards the side of it's probably unlikely that Mike McCarthy comes back, but it cannot be ruled out at all. And that will continue to be a main topic as these final games unfold. And, whether it's the Cowboys are able to win out and make the playoffs, which obviously is highly, highly, highly unlikely. I don't think anyone really expects that to happen. But whether it's that or whether the team just kind of, craters and stacks up a bunch of losses and it kind of is a negative finish this season, obviously that'll have an impact. And then, of course, the big thing, too, is who's out there, who would the Cowboys like that they would feel would be a better option than what they have right now. These are all things that they have to weigh, and they've probably been weighing last off season, coming off the Green Bay loss, and then all the way through this season after the 3-7 start. I find it hard to believe that it hasn't been on their minds in the front office. And so that will be a story that will be a big one the remainder of this season. And so those are just a few things that we touched on some of it in our last podcast, the preview for Monday night's game against the Bengals, but there's some other stuff added in there that I wanted to touch on. And so that is our weekly end of week recap. podcasts that we will continue to do throughout the rest of the season. So keep checking back. Usually it'll be on Fridays, even when they play on Monday, but certainly on Sunday games. Friday we'll have it published, and if you can't get to it Friday, give it a listen Saturday or maybe Sunday before the game. So appreciate everybody out there listening, and keep checking back on the One Star Cowboys podcast.
John's weekly recap, it's all the rage. He laughs and he hollers, takes center stage. Win or lose, he's got a grin on his face, 'cause Dallas Cowboys football is his happy place.